Well, it just popped into my head that I feel like one of the funniest Beach Boy quotes I've ever heard is when Mike said to the sun-kissed CEO that he'd rather drink the gasoline out of his Range Rover than drink sun-kissed. To me, that's just such a classic.
Hey everyone, my name is Jake, and welcome to this 58th episode of Good Timin. As always on this podcast, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite bands, the Beach Boys. And on today's show, we're going to be covering the band's third and final release of 1965, Beach Boys Party. So, as usual with our album discussion episodes, we're first going to go over some of the history behind the record and talk about how it came together. And then we will discuss each of the tracks one by one and share our own thoughts and opinions on them. And then to close out the episode, we'll go over a couple of extra tracks and outtakes that the band recorded around the time, including the band's 1965 single, The Little Girl I Once Knew. So joining me tonight, I have my usual party of Riley, Matt, and Nate. So as always, I'm excited to have you guys here, and I'm looking forward to discussing this record with you all. So before we get into some of the history and background surrounding Beach Boys Party, do you guys have any general thoughts or feelings about the album that you wanted to share?
The singing is sublime, and it's really a great time capsule of late 50s to early 60s rock and roll. You've got, the blend of the Beach Boys doing their Four Freshmen style Everly Brothers harmony arrangements, and then you have the more traditional rock and roll numbers. And it's also basically the invention of the MTV Unplugged style album, where you see a rock band convert their sound into something more acoustic and more folk-like. So I think it's just a stellar album, and it's just such a fun listen.
Definitely fun. Some good vocals on it. Kind of gets a reputation of being like a bit of a filler record, which kind of, but at the same time, I think there are some definitely charming numbers on here, but I don't care for some of the novelty tracks on here, but we'll get into that. But when it shines, it really shines.
Let it shine.
Um, that was a good one. I think this is like a very great view and look at how good the Beach Boys can sound without trying. Because if you listen to any of the tapes that they were doing, this is like very, even though it was not actually a party, spoiler alert, I know that's crazy, it wasn't actually a party. It was very much they were taking like what, three or four takes of them just going like straight at it. Very few. The only overdubs really were like the party noises and like all the people. It was really them just kind of going so casually and just right into a song. Um, I'm a big fan of it. It's just a very casual listen. It's very easy listening. It doesn't take a lot to like think about it, and it's still very enjoyable.
Yeah, so this is one of those albums that I think is a pretty enjoyable listen overall, and it has grown on me over time. Although I will say I still have some kind of mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I do think that the whole kind of party concept of the album is pretty cool. And I actually do really enjoy quite a few of the covers on here, particularly some of the ones on side one, like the Beatles covers. That said, though, I can't say that this is a record that I ever really listened to in its entirety. As much as I do like some of the covers, I wouldn't say that I enjoy most of them as much as I do a lot of the band's original material. And then there's also a few covers on here that I'm not the biggest fan of. Like Matt mentioned, a couple of those are like kind of novelty tracks, but we'll get into that later. There are times where I enjoy the kind of loose, laid back atmosphere of the album, where you have like the band laughing and joking around. But other times I almost feel like it almost distracts from the performances and almost makes the song sound a little bit too loose. But again, we'll get into that as we go through the track list. So overall, though, I do think that this is a pretty fun listen, and I think that it's a pretty unique album for both the Beach Boys, but also just for the time that it came out. So I'm looking forward to discussing it with you guys tonight.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the whole concept of capturing the party on a recording is so brilliant from a production standpoint. And it's just as innovative as a lot of the things Brian was doing as a producer, both before and after. And I think they did a really successful job of having the music shine through, but have it sound very joyous and very loose, like you said, and sounds like a crowd of people are there. And it's interesting too. I'll just note that I've heard Brian take credit for the party idea. I've heard Mike take credit for suggesting the party idea. And in Dean Torrance's autobiography, he says that Jan and Dean suggested the party idea. So I'm not sure. I couldn't personally say who was the one that came up with that. Maybe they all came up with it together. But it is interesting to note that there's so many different people taking credit for that idea.
All right, so now to get into some of the history behind Party, I'm going to pass things over to Riley. So Riley, do you want to talk about how the album came together and then also why the band went for a more kind of looser sound on this album?
Yeah, they kind of went for it because they kind of had to. Um, because in August they released Summer Days and Summer Nights. And Brian was kind of going down that rabbit hole that would eventually lead to Pet Sounds being released in '66. Plus, I think during this time he was working on Little Girl I Once Knew, which was kind of that like big stepping stone into Pet Sounds. Um, excuse me. But the Capitol wanted to release by the end of the year like they've had for the past couple of years. Um, like the year before they had a Christmas album, and they kind of wanted something that was very not necessarily like holidays-esque, but something that's very chill and relaxed that would be an easy thing to record and release and sell. So in the studio, they kind of gathered together, and with that kind of like chill, relaxed mindset, they more or less put together a covers album of a party. It wasn't actually a party, but that was kind of the atmosphere they were going for. Whereas a couple of acoustic guitars, very minimal supporting instruments. Like there's like some tambourines on some of the tracks, more and like some bongo drums, but it's more or less just them kind of fooling around with the covers. You also get like some other, I guess, artists and friends of the band coming in. I know Marilyn, I think, is on a couple of tracks. Some of the Honeys, and like Nate mentioned, Dean Torrance, who came in famously for Barbara Ann. And so they were able to
Billy
package
Hinchy as well.
what?
Billy Hinchy played on it as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I
Um,
think
But by the end of the year, they were able to release the Beach Boys Party album as their big holiday release. And there's also that picture. I think I'll have to find it, and maybe Jake can put it in. Of they released this album and as a way to sell it, that they would give them free potato chips with the album as like a big selling point. And I don't think any of them really expected it to necessarily do well. But the big like takeaway from this album was actually the single Barbara Ann, which Capitol just kind of packaged up and released as a single. And listening to it, it's like when I remember when I was younger and I like thought Barbara Ann was a Beach Boys song, I never really realized how stripped back and almost like childish the song actually is because it's you kind of expect that tight arrangement, but it was very loose, like laughing, and then you have that Ba Ba Black Sheep thing at the beginning, and I think they also sing it in the middle of the song too. So it was a big there's like a number one, right? I think Barbara Ann is a number one or number two.
number three, I think number two or number three in the U.S., top five in the UK.
It's often cited as number one, so it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Because
Number two.
the band always references it as a number one, but I think like Jake and Matt said, it was two or three.
I
Yeah.
think it was
It was
number
two
one
on
in the
Billboard.
UK though, right?
It was number one on Cashbox. That's where they're getting from, which
Oh,
no
there we
longer
go.
used as the official US chart. It's Billboard, and it was number two on Billboard.
Yeah, and I know
So everyone's right.
in the UK it was their biggest charting single to that point. I'm pretty sure, or something like that, which is crazy. But
But yeah, as mentioned, that this is around the time I think Brian was taking almost his biggest influence from the Beatles. He actually they covered a couple of Beatles songs on the album, but it's a very minimalist album, and it's kind of funny how this is the one that came right before Pet Sounds, and then the one right after Pet Sounds also went back to that minimalist kind of style. So like, do
yeah,
with that what you will. Um, but yeah, this was more or less just a Beach Boys holiday release. To that, it was kind of an obligated release, but you could tell they had a lot of fun doing it. They were covering a lot of tracks from the 50s, but also a lot of tracks from around that time. There's some cuts that didn't make the album, like the Blowing in the Wind. Actually, I think that was, did that get on? No, it didn't get on that. Blowing in the Wind,
another Bob Dylan.
um,
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction by the Stones. I think they also did a version of Ticket to Ride that was
Ruby
kind of
Baby.
cut halfway through. And then you look on the album and you see songs like I think there's three Beatles tracks.
I think four,
Three.
three.
There's
Okay.
three. Ticket to Ride was the cut one. Uh, I think you also have a Bob Dylan song on there, and then you have a couple ones. I think Al sings the Bob Dylan song. We'll get to it, but and then you also have some tracks from the '50s that were like more or less novelty tracks, like Hully Gully and Papa Oom Mow Mow, which is
Allie.
also released on the live record in '64. I don't know why they keep going back to that one.
Papa Oom Mow Mow, Papa Oom Mow Mow.
In many ways, you can call this a lazy release from the band, but it is still a very enjoyable album to listen to. So,
One more thing I'd want to say as an overall thought is I actually really think this album, it is played with a more compact, let's call it, set of instruments compared to Summer Days and Today, which had orchestras and horn sections. But to me, this album almost has an acoustic wall of sound between the acoustic guitars and the bass, and then the different layers of percussion and all the people singing along and the voices. It's
Hmm.
actually quite a big sound. Like Barbara Ann and some of the other rockers do have a hit sound despite being acoustic arrangements. So in that way, they sort of remind me of a lot of Elvis's early tunes and even the stuff that they did with that the Beach Boys did with Hype Morgan around 1961, where it's that folk instrumentation, but still quite a big sound and a full sound.
also besides
So
the
yeah,
potato chips, there's free fan photos inside.
those you should hold those up. Those are such classic
I
pictures.
unfortunately my copy, I only got like some of them. This is pre-owned. Actually, it has the owner's name on the front cover, which kind of
Those are
thank you,
such
Linda
great
Nielsen, for
pictures.
your copy. Um, but yeah, I think I got all the good ones missing though.
Mm.
I
All
just want a car. Hold on.
it's very. All right, we will get into the track by track run through for Beach Boys Party. So, the opening track on the album is Holy Gully, which is a cover of an Olympics song. So I think this is a pretty fun cover, and I think it's a solid way to open the album. Right away, it kind of captures the loose, laid-back sound that the record has. Musically, I don't think that the song itself is the most interesting or memorable. And I'm honestly not the biggest fan of the original version by the Olympics. But that said, though, the Beach Boys version does work for me just because the guys make the song sound a lot more energetic and fun. And they also just sound like they're all having a great time singing it, too. I really like Mike's kind of loose lead vocal, like where he's like, "You just shake your shoulders and wiggle your knees." It's a really good delivery from Mike. So yeah, this is one of the covers on the album where the looseness of the recording actually benefits the song for me. I still wouldn't consider it an essential listen by any means, but I think in the context of the record, it fits right in. So I enjoy it, but it's not one of my favorite covers on Party.
Yeah, there's a lot of covers on here, and this one's definitely not my favorite, but I think it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing I can say about a lot of these covers is that however I feel about the song doesn't really matter as much as I like the general energy to them. They sound like they're having a good time doing this. I don't know if they're like if that was kind of a forced like thing they're doing. Like they weren't they're imagining they're like miserable in the studio and just pretending to have fun. But I think it's the energy is just there. So I think what I could say about a lot of the ones, even though it's like not my favorite song in the world, can't really comment too much on the composition. It's pretty simple, pretty novel. Um, what I can say is that like it's and I mean this in the best way possible, is incredible background music. If I'm just like doing something. Like I remember when I was listening to this the record earlier, like just so I can prep myself for this episode, it was just like I kind of got easily distracted because I'm like really bad ADHD. Like I'll but it was very entertaining and I'd like kind of forget that I'm listening to the Beach Boys and it was just like really entertaining, fun music in the background. And I mean that in the best way possible because I think they just really pull off that very chill, relaxed atmosphere. And I think this is a good one to open with.
I think it's fine. Like I don't know. Like I get what you like. Definitely the energy is good, but I don't really care for the song. I just this is like one of those songs I just don't really care for it that much. But again, I think the energy is good. So nice way to open it, but not one that I would return to often.
Well, I totally agree with Riley that this is like probably my all-time favorite background music doing other stuff album to listen to. Like it's just it's simple enough where it doesn't like distract me from whatever task is at hand. Like if I tried to listen to the second side of Today while I was doing things, my heart would be melting and I would just get so distracted with like the beauty of the music. But this album I can have on the background and be doing whatever I got to do during the day. And it's just a really pleasant listen. So really I'll say this about probably every song on the record is I think they're all I agree with Riley, like whether or not the song is fantastic or just okay, the performances are so out of sight that there's really only one track that I think is a miss. But about this song, it's really catchy. It's not Beethoven or anything. It's not Pet Sounds, but to me it is really catchy. And I actually think it may have had a profound influence on them. And call me crazy, but the Mama Holy Goalie, Papa Holy, to me, surfing is the only life, the only way from.
Hmm.
It's very similar. It has a similar rhythm to it. It has a similar melodic structure. So to me, this song almost sounds like it could have influenced surfing and a lot of their early stuff. So yeah, it's a great performance. It's a cool slice of late 50s rock and roll. So I really like it. And Brian just sounds like a madman on here and he's having so much fun. And Mike is kind of full of spunk too. So yeah, I love it.
I think something I could say about some of these 50s ones that they pulled, again, Papa Oom Mow Mow, maybe not necessarily devoted to you. That one's classic. But like songs like this, Hully Gully, Papa Oom Mow Mow, Alley Oop, they're very simple in the best way possible that I feel like even if you don't know the song, you could probably pick up the chorus right away and you could just start singing along.
Yeah.
Um, like I didn't really know where I was in the song, but I knew that Holy Gully was going to come up eventually. So I could probably start singing along. And I guess if I were to like transport myself back to like 1965, um, this would be probably a pretty cool party song if like the friends were like pulling out guitars and singing and could easily just join in. I can't say the same now, but I think we have our own kind of stomp clap music from like 2015 that I could easily just get right back into. So.
Well, Riley, I was gonna say you've worked at a summer camp. To me, this totally a lot of these songs seem like perfect campfire songs.
Yep, I actually did a Tell Me Why. So,
There we
Ooh,
go.
yeah.
and a good thing about my version of Tell Me Why was it wasn't a minute and a half. It was like 3 minutes, like it should have been on this album.
All right. The next track on Party is I Should Have Known Better, which of course is a Beatles cover, and this one has Carl and Al sharing lead vocals. So this is one of the shortest covers on the album. It's only like a minute and a half in length. But despite that, it's actually one of my favorite tracks on here. I'm sure part of that has to do with the fact that I'm a really big Beatles fan, and I also do like the original version from Hard Day's Night. But honestly, I just really enjoy the guy's performance of this one. I think that the song itself totally works in this kind of looser acoustic style. And again, I think that the guys just sound like they're having a really great time singing it. Part of me does wish that they had done another verse and stretched it out a little bit more. But I do think that it works just fine at the shorter length that it's at. And it doesn't really outstay its welcome. So, yeah, overall, I really dig this cover quite a bit. And it's one of the ones on here that I come back to a decent amount. So I like it.
Yeah, I think Jake and I are very similar thoughts. We're both big Beatles fans, and I think everybody at here actually is
Yeah.
are big Beatles fans. So it kind of pains me to say this, the Beatles being one of my favorite bands of all time. I think I would prefer this one better if they added that extra damn verse to it.
They should
It's
they should have known better.
Yeah, they should have known better, man. And it's too short. It like this is I'm really speaking in my generation, my generation here. Nobody caught that joke.
I caught it.
All right,
I
thank
caught it
you.
too. I just didn't say anything.
Why didn't you guys laugh? Yeah, I was really speaking of my generation here, but you know that little meme is like, we're gonna make a song, it's the best song ever, but it's only gonna be a minute and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That's this right here. This and the next one, I think I actually both prefer or would prefer to the Beatles versions if they were just a little bit longer, if they added an extra verse or an extra chorus or just extended the guitar or something to make it more than a minute 40 or whatever. My copy says that it's 2 minutes 23 seconds, but now that I think about it, I think those extra like 40 seconds were just people laughing in the background, which sucks. But I think their voices work really well on here, and I think the stripped back loose arrangement is kind of what the Beatles were already doing. Because they're like we kind of like we said last week, they were like the the cool guys. They were just very relaxed and nonchalant, and they would just kind of rip into a song. They weren't really uptight with their arrangements quite yet, and I think it really works here. And I think their voices sound incredible, especially on this one. It does help that these are my two favorite songs off A Hard Day's Night. So
Yeah, I like it quite a bit too. I think Carl and Alice sound really good on it. It's like nice and loose and it works with this song, but again, I just wish it was the full song. I mean, it's not even that long as the original song. It's not that about a minute longer. I don't
Yeah.
think I can do the full song, but for what we got, I really like it quite a bit.
I never realized it was shorter. I've never crossed my mind.
big fan.
Um, but I will say that this is one of my favorite Beatles songs, and I think it's one of the best John Lennon vocal performances ever. But I love this Beach Boys version too. And at times I would maybe say that I prefer it because I just love the sweetness of the Beach Boys vocals on these covers. And I think the sweetness and the kind of boyish charm to Carl's voice really pairs well with like the sincere kind of like puppy love style song, you know? So yeah, I think it's a really charming recording, and it's one of the best pop songs ever written, so you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I will say, they're pretty close for me too. I mean, I definitely give the edge to the Beatles version production wise. But one thing, I do kind of wish was included on the Beach Boys version, just to hear what it would sound like, is if they had included harmonica. Like the Beatles version has during the intro. There's that little harmonica riff. There is harmonica on a couple of other songs on Party. I know it's on, I think, Mountain of Love. So I'm a little bit surprised they didn't at least experiment with that. But I'm curious how it would have sounded.
That's a good call.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, I wanted to mention, you were talking about the sweetness of the vocals. I really like how, like, when they're singing those higher parts during the bridge, there's like a little bit of strain, like the and when I tell you that I love you, oh, there's like, I just love like the little bit of strain in their voice when they sing that. It's
Yeah,
just a really great vocal performance from
That
Carl and Elle. So.
that would totally get redone nowadays because you can't have things like that in songs anymore.
All right, the third song on Party is another Beatles cover, Tell Me Why, and this one also has Alan Carl doing the lead vocals. So of the three Beatles covers on the album, this one is definitely my favorite. As much as I do like the original Hard Day's Night version of Tell Me Why, I actually think that the song works better at a faster tempo, like this recording has. I just really love the loose and upbeat energy of this cover. Again, I think that the guys' vocals sound really great. And I almost feel like you can really hear, just listening to this, you can hear how much the band loves the song. They just sound like they're having such a fun time singing it. And like I said, I just really love the upbeat energy of this. So for me, this is one of the highlights of the album, and I honestly do find myself coming back to this version more than I do the Beatles version. I just think that it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if I come back to this one more, but I come back to it a lot. Definitely, this might be the song I come back to most on this album, besides one other one. Well, two other ones. Forgot about the other Beatles cover. Um, you could just tell that, like, despite their, I guess, rivalry with the Beatles, that both are huge fans of each other. And I think it speaks a lot to, like, I'm sure maybe Capitol was like pressuring them to cover a couple of Beatles songs, but like if it was really like up to Capitol, they probably would have made them cover like "She Loves You" or I want to hold her hand." And you
Yeah.
can kind of see how, like, how big fans they are that they pulled these, like, I guess, two quote unquote deep cuts, I guess, from a Hard Day's Night. Although I don't know what U.S. Beatles album they were on, but still.
it's probably not a
They
coincidence they took songs that were from the movie A Hard Day's Night too, because I'm sure they saw that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Mina O'Brien was a big fan, and again, this one I'm really beating a dead horse here, but it's so fun and just cool. It's just very chill and relaxed, and I feel the energy maybe a bit more in this one than in the Beatles version, but the
Yep.
Beatles version was also so tight, and you got great vocals, so I can't really. It's hard, but they are both great songs. And I think that this song is very strong in it of itself. So imagine you have the best vocal group on the planet singing it. It just sounds so great. I'm a big fan of this one.
To answer your question, Riley, it Tell Me Why is on both the American Hard Day's Night and Something New. So it was actually on two albums. Also, too, like I know you said this is kind of like a deep cut, but I don't know. I'd argue the Beatles don't really have too many like deep cuts just because of how well documented their catalog is. Maybe like The Inner Light and You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, something like really obscure like that. Anyway, yeah, no, this is a really good cover. I kind of like towards the end of it where it's like they're like the if there's anything I could do, because I really can't stand it. I'm so in love with you. They're kind of like
You
like
nailed that, Matt.
like almost kind of like straining their vocals. I think that works really well. This is another one too that I kind of would have liked to hear the whole song, even though I know it's most of the song. Um, Probably my least favorite of the three Beatles covers, but it still is a really, really good cover, and I really do still enjoy it quite a bit. I just like the other two better.
I'd have to say this one is my favorite Beatle cover of the bunch on this one. And this is the only one of the three that I can definitively say in my mind beats the Beatles original just full on. And of course, the Beatles original version is a classic, and there's that iconic sequence of them performing it on stage in the Hard Day's Night movie. But the Beach Boys harmonies just elevate the song to an even grander level. And I think their harmonies just suit the song so well because the song was already American doo-wop inspired to begin with. So then, like you guys said, to hear the world's greatest vocal band interpreting it is just next level, you know? So I just love the recording. I can see why it was one of Brian's favorite Beatles songs. And I totally get why it was included on Spirit of America. Because again, it's easy to misconceive Endless Summer and Spirit of America as hits albums, but they're almost, fan favorites or songs that just evoke feelings or nostalgia. And to me, this song is a no-brainer as one that really evokes that nostalgia for simpler times and for those days where, like you guys said, the Beatles and the Beach Boys had that friendly rivalry going. So it's a great song and really
Mhm.
one of the highlights of the album. I think
Yeah.
it should be included on more compilations and greatest hits albums and things like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Sounds of Summer didn't has especially the expanded edition that's like about 70 songs. I think it only has Barbara Ann from Party.
And Devoted to You.
Mhm. I think you know a cover is good when like you're listening to it and you're not like mentally comparing it to the original the whole time you listen to it. Where you're like, oh man, I like this, but I wish I was listening to the Beatles version or whatever other band. When I listen to this, I just enjoy it as a Beach Boys recording, and then when I listen to the Beatles version, I obviously like that one too. But yeah, I just think like on this one, the upbeat kind of like laid back energy of it just really works, and it's great hearing like an early Carl vocal as well. Kind of hearing how his voice developed during this period. So. All right, the next cover on the album is Papa Oom Mow Mow, which is a Ribbingtons cover. This is one of the covers on the album that actually used to get on my nerves quite a bit, both because of how repetitive the song is, and also just because I found some of the guys' vocals a bit annoying, like with the that always kind of got on my nerves a little bit. But that said, re-listening to it this week, I'll admit that it has grown on me a bit. Again, I do think that most of the charm of it for me comes from the fact that Brian and Mike just sound like they're having a really fun time singing this. Even if some of the vocals are a little bit grating at times, I do still see the appeal. If I were to rank the covers on Party, this one would definitely rank more towards the bottom for me. And this still isn't one that I would plan on coming back to much outside of the album, but I do think that it fits the loose atmosphere of the record, so I don't really mind it being on here. So it's not one of my favorites, but I think it has a place on the album.
I think I like this one a lot better than the other versions that we've gotten. We've gotten a lot of the one from In Concert 64.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's a bit too much when I listen to those versions. Like it's Mike was a great front man, especially for that time, but I think he was leaning a little too hard into it in the live performances. I think this quote unquote chill, unplugged atmosphere allows the song to breathe a little bit. Granted, it's still maybe like one of my least favorite covers on the album, but it allows it to breathe and it sounds a bit more fun and not so, I guess, for lack of a better term, full of itself. You hear a lot of the other guys coming in, chiming in, like, prettiest girl I ever heard. It's just that part's it's not really punching my ears as much. It's just very chill and relaxed. So, in the context of Party, which I usually do listen to as like a full record, I like listening to it beginning to end. It's actually kind of fun. I don't think I'll ever come back to this on its own, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. It's got a bit of energy to it. It's a little annoying. I kind of see what Jake is saying, like, but it's not. I don't doesn't bother me too much. But yeah, it's kind of one of those covers I would say, like, I kind of with you, Riley. I probably wouldn't listen to it outside the context of Party, but it works really well in the context of Party, especially as a transition in between the two Beatles covers and the next song, which I do enjoy quite a bit.
Whether it's the concert live version or this version, I freaking love this song. There's just something so punk rock about it to my ears. Like to me, I really hear this could almost be like a Ramones song, with like the driving nature of it and that just the vocals that are just so balls to the wall and Brian just letting it rip on his lead vocal. So I really love, the live version has that kind of surf rock arrangement, and then this version has that, like you guys said, acoustic, unplugged, chilled out version. So, it's hard for me to decide which one I like more. I'd probably go with the live version because I do like hearing Dennis's crazy drumming on the live version. But whatever version it is, I just really do love this song. And you have to think at the time this was almost considered like one of the Beach Boys, quote unquote, like staples or greatest hits in a way, because they played it in their set list consistently, like almost nearly every show from 61 to probably 67 or 68. So it was a song that was really associated with them during the 60s, probably even more so than who sang at the Rivingtons? Yeah.
Rivington.
Who the
Mhm.
Yeah,
fuck
God,
ever?
by that point in 1966, I'm sure this was thought of way more as a Beach Boys tune, similarly to the way that Twist and Shout would have been associated with the Beatles. So I'm glad that a studio version of it exists. And if you listen really, really carefully, when Mike and Bruce's Beach Boys perform Barbara Ann live these days, they'll sneak in a few seconds of Papa Oom Mow Mow, normally towards the end of the song. That they'll just switch from singing Barbara Ann to Papa Oom Mow Mow for a brief 10, 15 seconds. So it's a pretty cool Easter egg if you're listening for it. It goes by so quickly that if you're not listening for it, you won't hear it. But next time anyone's at a show, listen for it, and I guarantee you'll hear it.
I think this is like a favorite of Mike's. Like this is one of his favorite songs. Like this is his "Be My Baby," I think.
Yeah.
All right, the next cover on the album is Mountain of Love, which was originally done by Harold Dorman. So this is actually another one of my favorite covers on side one of Party. I think that Mike gives it a really great lead vocal, and I just find this version of the song to just be very catchy and fun. I will say the original version by Harold Dorman, I think that it's decent, but I do feel like it's kind of lacking in energy compared to the Beach Boys recording. There's another version of this by Johnny Rivers that was recorded around this time, and that version sounds a lot closer to this one in sound for sure. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this cover, and I think it's another one of the earlier examples of Mike singing a song with love in the title, which he would do many more times in the future. So, yeah, I really like this one quite a bit, and I do like the harmonic on it as well. So,
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of this one actually. I liked it a lot more on this recent re-listen. I think it's one I'm going to come back to more. I don't know. I kind of used to think of it as more of a forgettable tune, but I think the harmonica actually kind of sells it. I'm not gonna lie. That really brought me in. If it was just guitars, I probably would have lost interest a little bit. And yeah, I think Mike also does a pretty solid vocal here. I think it kind of shows that he can sing those softer tunes sometimes. So maybe not my favorite, but it's definitely in terms of where I'd rank it amongst the covers. It's probably like middle of the pack.
I like it. I really like this one actually. I think that it's got a lot of energy to it. It's got a good like rock and rollin' kind of feel to it, and I think Mike sings it really, really well. And I think this is the one. Yes, this is the one where Billy Hinchy is doing the harmonica, so that's a nice little touch. Enjoy this one quite a bit, and yeah, I think it's definitely based off Johnny Rivers because it sounds like that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, like you guys said, I think on my first or second listen, I would have considered this in the more like novelty, forgettable category. But upon re-listening and re-listening, it struck me like, oh God, this is a really great song. Like the lyrics are nice and the melody is really crafted very nicely. And yeah, the Beach Boys performance is obviously so great. So I actually find myself returning to this cut a lot, even outside of just listening to the album itself. This is actually one that I think this would be a cool song for Mike to bring back into the set list. I think
Mountain
it
of
would
Love.
fit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love
it would
title.
fit. It would fit well within his vocal range. And they do include some oldies covers like Why Do Fools Fall in Love and Then I Kissed Her and things like that. So it would kind of fit in with those things. And it's a
Imagine
good
he
sing
like walks
along.
and he's like, now picture a valley of love. Now let's picture a mountain of love.
Mountain of Love. But yeah, and then one shout out I want to give is there's a great, extremely talented musician in Milwaukee that Riley met when he was visiting named Cody Ratley. And he fronts a band called Shame Wave. And they put out a single on Bandcamp of them covering this song in a kind of shoegaze, heavy rock arrangement. So it's super, super cool. He's a huge Beach Boys fan and a
What's the
talented
band name?
musician. So Shame Wave, a one word. And if you type in Shame Wave Mountain of Love, it'll come up. And then they did a cover of Back Home too, that are really worth checking out. He's a great guy, super talented, lovely guy. Um, so yeah, it's interesting that this song's influence appears to continue on, evidently.
Yeah, like you said, I just think it's a very well crafted song. Like the verses are super, super catchy, and then that chorus always gets stuck in my head too. The mountain of love, the mountain of love. It's just a really catchy pop song. So, all right, the next song on the album is "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away," which is the third and final Beatles cover on here. So I've seen some people online say that this is their least favorite of the Beatles covers on here, but I actually enjoy it quite a bit. The main thing that I like about this one is Dennis's lead vocal. I think that he really captures the feeling of the original version by John, which is honestly pretty impressive given how few lead vocals that Dennis had sung up to this point. The fact that he manages to like kind of really capture that feeling of the original. Outside of that, it is a pretty straightforward cover. It doesn't really change too much from the Beatles recording, besides being more stripped back. But I still find it to be a pretty enjoyable performance. So I do like this one quite a bit, and I definitely think it was the right call to have Dennis sing lead because I doubt this would have worked well without him singing. So I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think if there, it's weird because Dennis is maybe not necessarily the most like technically talented vocalist, but neither is John Lennon, if we're gonna be really honest. And I think Dennis really captures John's emotion really well on this one. I actually think he kind of gives a better vocal in some spots.
It's close. It's
It's
close.
very close. Like I think John kind of gave this more of an like an effortless vocal. Like you could tell he was just kind of doing it. Um, but I think Dennis is really putting some emotion into it, and it really matches it well. I think it's a great pairing, and I think that because the songs, I think these are actually both very similar. Well, they're both really just acoustic tracks, anyways.
Yeah.
So if they were to pick a Beatles song to really do, this is actually maybe the best choice they could have picked for Party. Um, this one, Dennis kills it. I would put this. This is definitely up there as one of my favorite covers on the album. I would say it's better than I should have known better, but I think it's not as good as Tell Me Why. Tell Me Why is just fantastic.
I really like this one a lot. You said people think it's their least favorite. I really, really enjoy it. I think, yeah, it's not like the most inventive cover of that song, but I also don't think that that song really needs a lot of dressing up and being ridiculous with it. And I think Dennis just has the emotion to cover that song. And yeah, you're right, Riley, in that John Lennon technically wasn't the best vocalist because I remember, and not that you should take this as gospel, but when Rolling Stone had their list of the greatest vocalists and he was higher than Freddie Mercury, people lost their shit. So you're right. But I was gonna say, I do think
He
that
kicks
Dennis.
Freddie Mercury's ass.
Oh, but you'll have people that say Freddie Mercury was the greatest rock frontman of all time and had the greatest
Wasn't.
voice of all
He's
time. But
not even top five.
anyway, this is a great cover. I think Dennis does a great job with it and sells the song extremely well. And it was a good, and you were right, Jake, it was a good choice to have him do it.
So, with this song, as wonderful as it is with the Beatles version, iconic recording, but when I listen to it, I sense the song itself is very emotional and raw, but John Lennon almost builds this wall of irony around himself by delivering it in a way that's almost a straight up Bob Dylan impression. Like, I think you could really interpret this song as a Bob Dylan parody in a way with the hey, you get it's so Bob Dylan. And John Lennon even admitted to that later on that it was like a Bob Dylan tribute or send off, whatever you want to call it. But what I love about this version with Dennis is Dennis isn't trying to do a Bob Dylan thing. He's not even trying to do a Beatles thing. He's just truly making the song his own and just making it sound so earnest and so vulnerable, almost as if he could have written it himself. And I don't think this gets mentioned too often, but I think Dennis himself was such an incredible cover singer, whether it's this or Do You Want to Dance, or even on their first album, The Little Girl, You're My Miss America. Dennis was really great at taking songs written by other bands or other songwriters and delivering it with such passion that you'd think that it was his own song. So, yeah, just a classic, classic Dennis Wilson vocal.
Nate, I think you said exactly what I wanted to say. Just actually put the words to it. I think it's because Lennon was very much and very openly influenced by Bob Dylan. But like so when he wrote that song, it was kind of him doing a Bob Dylan impression. Um, I and Dennis just kind of just like sang it as Dennis rather than trying to like impersonate Lennon or impersonate anybody. So that's
Yeah, he
very
gives it like a in the back of my mind kind of treatment
Mhm.
with like the power in his singing and the moments of power and moments of being very delicate and soft.
All right, the final track on side one of Party is Devoted to You, which is a
Oof.
Everly Brothers cover. So this is definitely my favorite cover on the album, and this is also the one that I come back to the most outside of the record. I just think that Mike and Brian's shared vocals blend together so beautifully on here, and it really just makes the song feel extra moving and heartfelt to me. I do like the original Everly Brothers version, and I think that their vocals sound great too. But I think I'm always going to prefer this Beach Boys recording just because it's the version that I first heard, and I really love hearing Brian and Mike sing this. I just think their vocals are so tender and emotive. So I love this one a lot, and I think that if there was a song that I could choose to represent this album on a compilation, this would be my choice. So I think it's a beautiful cover.
I am a massive Everly Brothers fan. I have like three or four compilations in my record collection. Uh, and I probably have like three or four of the songs like repeated across those greatest hits, but I'm a big fan. All I Have to Do Is Dream is one of my favorite songs of all time, and same with Devoted to You. And I really love this cover. I prefer the one without some of the noises on it. I love that like right before I do love though that right before on this one, that you have like Brian saying, "Shut up if you don't know this one. Just shut
Yeah,
up."
yeah.
Uh, and damn, they just Brian and Mike, who on the record I just checked, are labeled the Cleverly Brothers, which Jesus Christ, they were not helping their image whatsoever with that one.
You know, Mike was proud of that one.
Mike's like, oh, Everly Brothers. Well, we're the Cleverly Brothers. Mike has a lot of genius moments and has a way with words, but that is not one of them. Um, but it's so damn good. It's they. I don't know what it is. I think it's because like Mike has that like every man voice, clevery man voice, every man voice, and I shot myself in the foot with that one.
No, that was good.
And and Brian has such like a heavenly like angelic voice, and I wish they had more moments of harmonizing throughout their careers because I could probably count on my hands of the songs that it's just Brian and Mike, and there's not many of them. I think this might be the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but they should have done it more. It's so gorgeous, and it has just such a I can't really describe the quality to it. It's they just mesh so well on this one.
Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Probably the best cover on here. Um, Sung so well. It's just the how they harmonize is just so angelic sounding. And this was actually the B-side to the Getting Hungry single, which was credited to Brian Wilson and Mike Love. not the Beach Boys. I definitely agree that this would be a great representation of the record as a whole. Just really, really, really gorgeous. A great, great job they did on this one.
Yeah, this cut is nothing short of heavenly, and the vocals are so ethereal, and I think it really showcases that, all the Beach Boys voices were important to the blend. But to me, this one really shows that the true secret sauce of that kind of OG Beach Boys vocal sound was Brian and Mike's incredible blend. And that's something that they refined since they were kids, walking home from church and hanging out on the holidays and things like that. And both of them always talked about the fact that they would cover Everly Brothers songs together back when they were teenagers. So the practice definitely paid off because this song just sounds really, really amazing. And it was definitely whoever's idea it was to include it on the 2022 Sounds of Summer expanded version. I'm really glad that they included it on there because it's just a tremendous recording. And I heard that actually the selection for that record was that they obviously had the standard edition, but then for the expanded, all those extra songs, they were selected by each of the band members, got to pick a few songs. So I have a feeling that was probably Brian or Mike's suggestion to include that one.
Mhm. All right, let's flip the record over and kick off side two with Alley Oop, which is a cover of a Hollywood Argyle song from 1960. So this is the first cover on the album that still doesn't really work for me. Honestly, I just don't think that it was the best choice of song to begin with. The original version is pretty much a novelty hit, and musically, I don't really find it to be particularly memorable. So I'm not really sure what led the guys to choose this over some of the other songs they could have went with. I do think that Mike gives us a fine lead vocal, and I do kind of like the "Look at that caveman go" part. That's kind of fun, but besides that, I don't really have much else to say about this. It just doesn't really do anything for me, and this is one that I never really see myself coming back to outside of this album. So not a big fan.
Yeah, this one's like Papa Uma Mau Mau, but not as good. It's just I don't know. I don't think I would have minded this so much if it just didn't start side two.
Yeah.
It's all right. Like it's not like it's not like a sufferable listen. I'm not like dying when I listen to it. It's just I don't know, it's just pretty average. I kind of wish they replaced it with a different novelty track from the 50s or maybe one of the other tracks that they did from that were cut from the record. Imagine like opening side two with Satisfaction or something. That would have been a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying to be honest with you. Like I can appreciate Mike's vocal, but it's just a really like kind of corny novelty song for me. Didn't age that well. Just I don't care for it much.
Now here's Nate to tell us why he loves it.
Here we go. I have a big soft spot in my heart for these like early rock and roll novelty songs. It's probably from being such a big fan of Elvis and Jane and Dean, who both kind of predate the whole singer-songwriter era of pop music that Brian and the Beach Boys essentially kicked off. So I do like those old kind of nothing songs that were just kind of rock and roll jams. And I think what I like about them is A, they're fun to play with like a group of musicians, simple chords, everyone can learn it quickly. Like we were talking about with Hully Gully, kind of campfire vibes. And sometimes I listen to music to really feel something and to really get in touch with my emotions. And sometimes I just listen to music to like shut my brain off and just have some pleasant noise. So I would put that in this category. It has no meaning to me, but it evokes, a happy emotion, makes me tap my toes. And to answer Jake's question about why the hell would they record this, I have a theory about that. And so this song was the producer Kim Fowley's first claim to fame, and he went on to be a very successful record producer based in the West Coast. And he and Bruce were really close, and they played together in a lot of bands. in their teenage years, and they did a lot of co-production and arranging and engineering and all that good stuff together when Bruce was rising through the ranks in the 50s, like we talked about in his episode. So I can definitely imagine a scenario where they're all throwing out songs to cover that Bruce would probably throw out covering one of his best friend's songs. So that's my theory as to why they would have done it.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, the next song on Party is There's No Other Like My Baby, which is a Crystals cover. So this is easily my favorite cover on side two of Party. I think that the song works pretty well in this laid back acoustic style. And I do like Brian's lead vocal quite a bit. Maybe it's just me, but re-listening to this week before this episode, there's parts of Brian's vocal where I can almost hear like elements of his later voice in the 80s and 90s, like during the second half of the song, like during the
Mm,
verses. There's parts where like I don't know if it's his delivery or just like the tone he's singing it in, but I can hear that later Brian voice, and it's
that
very
shouty 88 voice. I
right because
totally hear what you're saying.
there's not many other examples of that where like you can really hear that in like their band's earlier catalog, and I just feel like you can hear it here, which I think is interesting. So anybody listening to this episode, give this song another listen and see if you can pick up on that. But besides that though, I don't have too much else to add. I probably wouldn't put this cover on the same level as something like Devoted to You or some of the Beatles covers on side one, but I do still enjoy it, and I think that it fits in well in the album, so I think it's a good cover.
Hard to disagree there, Jake. I think this is actually my favorite song out of all of them,
Mm,
uh, by a very wide margin.
mm.
Um, I don't know. I think there's something about Brian whenever he tries to emulate Spectre in some aspect, he always just kills it. I don't know, man. It admits all the emotion from that Spectre release with the crystals, and it just translates perfectly. Um, I think the fact that it's kind of stripped down to just the acoustic guitars and the harmonies, it almost adds on to the emotion. It does what Spectre did with like so many instruments. I was going to say hundreds, but I don't know if it was hundreds, but you know what I mean? But Spectre's able to do with that
Damn
big
near.
wall of sound, he's able to emulate with just like his band and guitars. It's a very emotional song. I think that they really execute it so well. And it's easily the one I come back to the most out of all the tracks. Like not even close.
Yeah, I really like this quite a bit. There's a tenderness in Brian's vocal that works really well. Um, it's a really good cover of like the Crystals, that them paying homage to Spectre. This was actually the B-side to Little Girl I Once Knew, so this is another one that got somewhat of a single release, kind of like Devoted to You. Definitely my favorite on side B of the record by a mile. It's not even close. And I do come back to this one quite a bit, so I really do enjoy it.
Yeah, this is a really terrific vocal showcase of the band. Brian's lead is really emotional, but I will say I'll never be able to unhear that shouty Brian 80s tonality that Jake pointed out. That added a whole new layer of interest to the track for me. I will say I think the harmonies out outshine the Spectre version. I do think the harmonies are just so brilliant. No one really harmonizes better than the Beach Boys. But to me, this is one song where Spector's original backing track on the original recording of the song is just so immaculate and ghostly and perfectly crafted. And, the song's like a sweet love song, but on Spector's version, there's so much eeriness and almost like pent up stress and emotion built into his arrangement. And it just with the strings, and it's just really lush. And so comparing it now to the Beach Boys acoustic version, I do feel like the unplugged nature of it makes it fall a little short. I think almost all these songs work so well as acoustic versions, but Spectre songs, in my mind, normally call for a little bit more of an intricate arrangement. But nonetheless, it's a perfect performance from the boys, and it's not meant, truly to emulate Spectre as much as it's just meant to be its own thing on this party concept. So it works extremely well.
Yeah, I will say I do really like the strings on that Spectre version. The strings definitely add a lot to the song. So,
There's something about those songs that Phil wrote when he was really young, when he was still doing most of the writing. You know, you get to the mid 60s and he was just sort of putting the frosting on the cake, but those early tunes like To Know Him Is to Love Him and Spanish Harlem and this one, there's just you really get a window into his soul and there's so much yearning within those songs that you can see the way that they influenced Pet Sounds and some of Brian's really sensitive material.
mhm. All right. So the next track on Party is I Get Around paired with Little Deuce Coupe as a medley. So of course this is a reworking of two of the band's most well-known classic songs. So I've seen a couple of people say that they appreciate the band not taking themselves too seriously with these two covers and kind of like poking fun at themselves, which I do get, but for me, these just come off as very irritating and unnecessary. The band easily could have done some like normal upbeat acoustic versions of these songs, like they did with the Beatles songs that they covered on Party. But instead, they just decided to just goof around and make these really sloppy sounding recordings, and it just does not work for me at all. I think knowing how great the original versions of both of these songs are, both like in the performance themselves and just in Brian's production and everything, I just find this very tough to listen to. And I really wish the guys had either just recorded them normally or they were just dropped altogether from the album and they would have added another, 50s or 60s cover. This is easily the low light of Party for me, and I think that the album would be better off without it. I'm just not a fan of this, and I think it's one of the more like pointless recordings that the band put on a studio album. So,
I remember when I was watching what's it called? In My Beach Boys Room, that podcast.
mhm.
Very inf Shut up, man. Very informative guys are very informative guy.
Guy, yeah.
Yeah, the other guy, I guess he's like the new Beach Boys fan. He's kind of getting the stories told to him, and he kind of had that like casual fan reaction, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. But one of the things I think the main guy, I forgot his
Matt
name. It's
Matthew,
actually
Matthew.
yeah, Matthew Hartz. That is his name. Very, very. He knows his shit. Something he said. He's like when he was like in the when he was younger. He heard that one of his other Beach Boy like fans and friends was like, the Party album. Interesting concept. Here's a theory. Each song on the Party they are getting progressively more hammered. Um, and like it was kind of hard to like understand that, I guess, like fan theory. And then you kind of listen to this one, and it's like, yeah, these guys are pretty fucking hammered if they did this. So I tried listening with that lens to see if I'd get more enjoyment out of it. I didn't. It still sucks. It's I don't know. I can understand why they would want to do that. It's like, oh, look how goofy we are. We're funny guys. And I think if they're doing it more for themselves as like an enjoyment thing, I can respect that. You have a lot of those sounds on the album, but when it comes to this like an actual listening experience, it's not fun. Um, I mean, I think this is a very cool pair of songs to pair together. They're both probably their two biggest car songs, without a doubt. I guess if I Get Around even counts as a car song, it's like included with the car songs on the set list now, so I guess so. But it just sucks. It's too much. They're trying too hard to be funny. If there's something the Beach Boys are not known for, it is their great sense of humor because they're very corny guys. And every time they try to like do this humor thing, it never really works. I feel like they're very funny when they don't try to be funny. But when they try, you get shit like this. There's a reason we put it on our dog shit album. It's just not that great. It's them trying way too hard to. I think they easily could have done some of damn near any of their songs from previous albums, and it would have. And if they actually took it a little bit seriously, like they did with some of the other covers, it probably would sound a lot better. Like I would have loved maybe a "Don't Worry, Baby" after that Spectre song, or maybe like "In My Room" and get a chance for them to really harmonize. But we got this.
I think if your drinking theory is true, I think Mike had the most drinks on this one. Just listening to
Club Kokomo.
it.
I need some drinks to hear the humor in this. This is awful, honestly. Like this to me is like the really corny, bad, like them trying to be funny. It's not really funny. It's just I just don't like it. I just don't get it. I this That's not appealing to me at all. And you had mentioned, Jake, that like they could have thrown, yeah, like they could have thrown, like, I know they did like Ruby Baby that was in the vault or something. I don't care
At the
what.
back. Yeah.
Like they could have thrown something on there, but I just don't get it. Eh. Like I said, they're not, like, I think you said it best, Riley. They're not really like the Beatles where they were like kind of witty. Like they just kind of would say stupid shit and it would be funny. And like them trying to be funny, you get stuff like this, and yeah, doesn't work for me.
That they can be funny guys. Like Brian, I think is easily like the funniest out of all. I mean, he's a very witty guy. Um, but I feel like they're just trying to almost script it. It's like they're at their funniest when it's just like off the cuff, or if it's like
Mhm.
a comeback, or it's like in the moment. That's what made the Beatles funny, I think, too, is that they were like they were snappy. They just had it right away. But if you like script it, it just doesn't really work too much. It doesn't really work well. But I'm sure Nate has some very positive thing to say about it that might change our minds. And I don't mean that as an insult, Nate. I mean that in the best way possible. You're a very positive person, so I'm ready to
I
hear what you got to
appreciate
say.
it. Well, I it just popped in my head that I feel like one of the funniest Beach Boy quotes I've ever heard is when Mike said to the sun-kissed CEO that he'd rather drink the gasoline out of his Range Rover than drink sun-kissed. To me, that's just such a classic.
I
Um,
remember that.
but um, sorry, let me get my brain back on track. Which one are we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Um, so yeah, this when we started the episode off, and I was saying that there was one track on this album that I felt like was really a miss. This is the one I was referring to, and it's just because you listen to that expanded edition party album, the session out, whatever they called it, you hear all the brilliant outtakes they had. There were probably half a dozen, if not more, great songs and great recordings they could have included in the place of this song. And like you guys said, I never totally got it, but when I figured we'd be doing this album, I listened to it more closely. And like I said, I do play this album in its entirety a lot when I'm doing things. So I do end up listening to the song more than any sane person should, or songs, whatever you want to call this little monstrosity. But what I will say about it, there's two things that made me appreciate it more recently. One is Brian is doing so much goofing around. Even before Riley shared his theory, I was going to joke that I thought that this is when Brian's joints were kicking in at his party, and things are just really going off the rails. Um, and so anyway, Brian is having so much fun goofing around and laughing and making jokes that Bruce is actually handling a lot of what would be Brian's parts. So it's interesting to hear Bruce doing those parts in like studio quality instead of hearing it with all the girls screaming in some live tape. So that's kind of interesting. And what made it kind of click a little bit more for me was the other day I was listening to it and I was like, oh, this is kind of like Jane and Dean's comedy songs. This is like their Filet of Soul album, or they have a song called Schlock Rod or a song called The Submarine Races, where it's just like goofing around on top of backing tracks and just being silly. And looking at it through that lens, I was like, oh, I kind of see what they were going for. But yeah, ultimately, I just think there are so many other great tracks that they could have included. Satisfaction, Ruby Baby, Ticket to Ride. There's quite a few others. So yeah, there's something, most bands, it would be kind of fun to hear them like massacre their songs and it's whatever. But the Beach Boys are all about like perfection and being the most beautiful music you've ever heard. And those two songs are such masterpieces that to hear them just rip the songs apart and be so goofy with it, it's just kind of a weird experience.
I'm
But
gonna
as we always say about some of these songs, would never listen to it on its own, but in the context of the album, it works, I guess. They do work in the context of the album.
Yeah, especially if they're hammered. I'm looking at the full, the extended big giant like CD track list, and I'm seeing the songs that I have saved. Like they had a version of California Girls that they probably could have used too.
And I think
Which
they
is
did
kind of
Riot in Sub Block 9 too, didn't they?
Yeah, it's on there.
yeah, we'll get to that one.
Oh,
They
that Deuce eventually.
if we're not getting into in this episode, there's a couple of other versions of that song that they're known for. Um, I mean,
Bachelor.
besides just the fact that they if they want to do their own song, they like a Beach Boys song, they have like a couple of them. I think I'm scrolling through it now, but I know they have that California Girls. I think they didn't they do a version of Don't Worry Baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Oh, well, it's 44 seconds, so maybe not that one, but they have a full length California Girls that's like 3 minutes. So I mean, that was a recent hit for them. So
Nate, I'm going to start referring to this from now on as this little monstrosity. All right, the next track on Party is The Times They Are Changin', which of course is a Bob Dylan cover and has Al Jardine on lead vocals. It's fine.
is that it?
I think Al gives it a decent vocal. It definitely makes sense that Al would be singing this, given like he's the kind of the folk influence of the group. But it's just kind of pointless. It just doesn't really change much from the original. Not that he should. The original is a classic song and everything, but like there's just not really a point to listen to this outside of the context of the album. I think in the album it works fine, but like this is never something I'm gonna revisit by itself. So it's there. It's fine. Al gives it a good vocal, but that's about it.
Took the words right out of my mouth. It's like very inoffensively good. It's just good. I like it. I get entertainment value from it. Um, but it's just a case of like it doesn't change much because Bob Dylan was basically doing party albums for a living. He kind of just did like a lot of like that was his first like four records were just like acoustic guitar and him singing folk and
Harmonica.
and like 65 he kind of branches out a bit and even 64 he branched out a bit, but it is essence he was a folk artist. Like when it comes to like songs like on the other ones on here, it's like Tell Me Why and I Should Have Known Better, or these like 60s guitar pop, like electric guitar pop Beatles songs. Then you have There's No Other Like My Baby, which is this grand Spectre like masterpiece. And even like Devoted to You, I mean, you get different values from different harmonies. Um, and I guess you could say the same for You Gotta Hide Your Love Away, but Dennis is a very like emotional singer, like a naturally emotional singer. A song like this, Al was literally like he wanted to be a folk singer. And he kind of I guess I could argue he does too good of a job covering it, where there's just not much of a difference from the original. I mean, if I want to listen to this song, I just much rather listen to the Dylan version. But it's a good cover. He does a great job. He has a great lead vocal on it. I would say he kills it, but it's just one of those songs that's already kind of just bare bones as is. So you're not really adding much or taking away much. It's just more or less the same. It's too good for its own being, I guess.
It shows that Al's voice fits the folk genre very well. That's the
Yes.
big takeaway of it.
It's fine. I think you guys hit the nail on the head where it's like he sings it well, it's a fine cover, but it's not really something I'm gonna return to outside the context of the album. It's fine.
So, like you guys said, I for the longest time used to consider this the most forgettable song on the album. And to the point where as we were going through these songs and we were on the last one, in my head, I was like, okay, Barbarian's next. And I forgot about this one. But with that said, I agree with all the reasons you guys said why it's kind of just vanilla and not anything too memorable. But I'll be totally honest, I had an experience listening to it that totally gave me a new perspective on the song and what it means in the arc of the Beach Boys story. And it actually made me like get teary-eyed and get really choked up, and I'll explain why. So with this song, with the Dylan version, you listen to it and you think about Vietnam and you think about the civil rights movement and you think about all the things that were going on in America and the different peace movements and religious movements. And it's really a catalog of all the things that were happening in the country and in the world. But I was listening to this Beach Boys version and I just became overwhelmed with emotion because to me, this song is very prophetic in that so much was about to change in the Beach Boys' personal lives and in their familial lives. And it kind of predicts that because you think about the coming months and years, and you have, Brian obviously going off the rails and Brian beginning to suffer a lot. You had Jan Berry, who they were very close with, have his nearly fatal car accident. You had Dennis bringing Charles Manson into their life. And really, the times were changing for the Beach Boys. And this was sort of, Party was like their last grasp of innocence and youth and summer and everything being simple, because from 1966 onwards, things were about to get way more turbulent, way more sketchy characters were about to come into their lives. The family was essentially going to be ripped apart from this point forward. So I think when you listen to this recording with all of that in mind, it all of a sudden becomes way more powerful. And it's almost like they're waving goodbye to their youth and their summer days and their innocence.
And there's
That
summer
summer days
nights.
was
Don't
not
forget
meant to
that
be a
part.
Beach Boys pun. But yeah, it's very prophetic in that way because times were certainly changing for the Wilson brothers and their friends and family.
It's an interesting perspective.
Thanks
It
for the setup,
definitely
by the
gives
way.
different thoughts listening to it for sure. So, all
Bop,
right,
bop, bop.
yeah. All right. The final track on Party is Barbara Ann, which of course it's a Regents cover, but everyone knows it now as a Beach Boys song. And this one features both Brian and Dean Torrance from Jan and Dean on lead vocals. So if you listen to this podcast for a while, you probably already know this, but I've never been the biggest fan of this version of the song. I will say that in the context of the Party album, I think that it works better for me. It does fit in with the kind of loose, laid back sound of the record. But re listening to it again before this episode, it still kind of baffles me that this was as big of a hit as it was. It is catchy, and I can see some of the appeal of like the song itself. But this recording just sounds pretty sloppy to my ears, and I also find some of the vocals to be pretty grating as well. Do I think that it's one of the worst things the band ever recorded? No. But in terms of like their biggest chart hits, this definitely ranks towards the bottom for me. So I enjoy hearing this song live, and I will sing along to it at concerts. It definitely is a crowd pleaser for sure, but I rarely ever come back to this original Party version. It just doesn't do a whole lot for me. And I remember even before I got into the band, like, I would hear this one occasionally, and like I was never a fan of it then. So just not the biggest fan of this song.
So you like the song itself, just not this version.
I like the song itself. If we're gonna like ramp up the energy and crank the guitars and everything, in this version where like it's kind of stripped back and we got the kind of like whiny vocals at times, like it just kind of gets on my nerves a bit. Yeah.
I agree. I think that I kind of almost wish we got like two official releases. Like we got a Barbara Ann that they did maybe on a, I don't know, probably like Shutdown Volume 2 or something if the song was out by then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think the original by the Regents was released in like what, 61?
Sounds about right. Yeah, 61.
Yeah. So like if we got like an official, I guess like Beach Boys version with that's like actual studio, like
Mm-hmm.
Brian arranged it, whatever. And then we got this. But for what we got, I still like it. It's still pretty enjoyable. I think I come back to it. Maybe not as much as like a number two hit would probably get returned to by me, but I do like it. And it's always fun hearing this one like on the radio. Like if it's on the radio and I'm with my dad or someone in the car, I'll listen to it. Or actually, I heard it on the grocery in the grocery store pretty recently. So my Stop and Shop, whoever DJs that place has really good taste because I heard Norwegian Wood like right after it. So. I like the song. I love hearing it, but I just don't come back to it as much as like I'm sure a lot of people, like casual fans would. Just because it's like it's fun to listen to them be like, oh, Baba Black Sheep, and like it's a fun listen. But like I prefer the Who version that came out in '66.
Mm-hmm.
That one is they Keith Moon's going like wild on the drums. You hear I think Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend like harmonizing. And you got like the awesome like maximum R&B guitar going on in the background. And there's another version they did that's even better. That wasn't the studio version that the Who did. That was actually I think live for the BBC, and they fucking rip through it, and they kind of give the song the treatment that it deserves. So I'm with Jake. Like it's a great song. Maybe leaning more towards liking it than him, but It's a great song, but I just there's just it could have been a little bit better. They should have known better.
Jesus.
Stop and Shop, right? That takes me back to summers in New Jersey. Yeah, this I like it as a song, fine. I think it's very overplayed at this point. Um, I think it works good as a concert staple, but I don't know. I think I've heard it enough. Um, but I think it's fine, the concept of the album. It's a fun song, but I don't know. I just think it's kind of overplayed, to be honest with you, at this point. And it's a little annoying for me, at least personally, when like this is like for some people like the only Beach Boys song they know. I kind of blame Full House for that. But also like I mean, like, let me just tell you an anecdote. When I was in my first job out of college, we had an intern at that job, and this was like the Beach Boys song he had on his random playlist of songs, and it kind of annoyed me because it was like this was the one song. Like yeah, like I like it fine, but if I never heard it again, I wouldn't be sad.
So I really just gotta say I think this is one of the quintessential rock and roll recordings. And I think it just captures everything I would look for in an early rock and roll song. It's got the driving beat and, great vocals and simple chords. And it's just great to sing along to. And it has great energy. So I think this recording to me just sounds like lightning in a bottle. Like, yeah, they're silly and it's imperfect and it's loose, but the energy is just totally off the charts. And it to me it just has that great rock and roll energy that, I draw a connection to stuff by people like Little Richard or Elvis or, like those just real rock and roll showcase numbers where you listen to it and you almost just kind of feel this electricity from the music. So I really love this version. And I think it's kind of interesting that I think they were looking at it more so from the angle of, oh, let's cover a Jan and Dean song because Dean is here now. And because, the Regents recorded it first, but to my understanding, in the West Coast, because back then music was so regional, that in the West Coast, it was more known for being a Jan and Dean song since they had recorded it in 1961 or 1962, and they included it on their Golden Hits album. So there's on that expanded party that they released in 2015, there's a little excerpt from the session where you can hear Mike say, "Okay, I want to do a Jan and Dean number." So that's kind of the proof in the pudding that they were selecting this as an homage to Jan and Dean, who had influenced them so much. And Barbara Ann was actually one of the songs that they would sing when the Beach Boys were Jan and Dean's backup band. This was one of the songs they were doing way back in the early days when they met Jan and Dean. So that whole historical component is kind of interesting. I will say for people that like the track and the harmonies and the song, but don't care for the party noises, that's kind of Jan and Dean's version. But yeah, I think, like I said, the Beach Boys version is really just, to me, lightning in a bottle. And there's just an electricity that comes from the energy. And I think it's so fun. And uh, I definitely prefer the single version where it just goes right into the song and it doesn't have that whole Baba Black Sheep intro.
You
Because
don't know
that
how to
sort of,
sing Baba Black Sheep, everyone you want.
it is funny to hear that Dean sort of like silly falsetto that he does. But one other thing I wanted to point out that I think is so cool, one of the coolest little Easter eggs. I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but on the single version, I have the exact timestamp. But during the guitar solo, around 110, and again, that's on the single version, it would be a little tiny bit later in the album version. You can hear Bruce Johnston play the Good Vibrations bass line during the solo section of Barbara Ann. I know you guys don't believe me, but if you check it out, you'll hear it. In the middle of the solo, Bruce goes boom, 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 and it's just for a brief moment. I don't know if they were already rehearsing Good Vibrations by this stage, or if Brian had been playing it on the piano, or if it's truly just a cosmic coincidence, but it's a crazy little moment. I don't know if, and think about it, Brian could have heard that bass line, or Mike, or because they both contributed to that bass line component, could have heard that and recycled it later on since the Beach Boys did that so many times. again, it could be a coincidence, but you guys and all of our listeners definitely check out during the guitar solo, around 110 if it's the single version, you'll hear Bruce play almost note for note the exact Good Vibrations bass line just for a second. So
Wow.
it's a pretty crazy coincidence.
Wow. They were cosmically conscious. I will say in terms of like the versions of this song that I do actually come back to, like I would put on my Beach Boys playlist, I do really like the Nebworth version where they've got the guitars cranked to 100.
Hell fucking yeah.
The energy of that one is just awesome, and Mike's killing it on lead. And then also there's a version I found on YouTube. Like I was just browsing like some Beach Boys playlists and stuff. There's a version from like the mid 90s, maybe mid to late 90s, where I forget where the venue was, but there's maybe I'll link it in the comments. But I don't know who was on guitar on this version, but like they are like shredding on the guitar during the solo. It's like crazy. Like I first
Probably
heard
Ed Carter.
I was just like blown away by it. So I'll definitely link that in the comments if I can find it. But that might be my preferred version of the song, just because like the band is like kicking ass on that one. So
It's such a great live song. Like when it's performed live, every single person in the audience is just lifted to their feet.
mhm.
Um, and I will say, anytime I'm having a conversation with someone and I mention the Beach Boys, and it might be someone who's not very familiar with them, they might go, "Oh, the Beach Boys," or you can just tell if someone's struggling to remember. So all I have to do is go ba ba ba, and they go, "Oh, okay, okay, I know." So it's just a testament to what a memorable song it is that you have to sing three syllables of a song, ba ba ba, and everyone knows what song you're singing. It's pretty incredible.
Definitely
All,
listen to that Who version. That Who version kicks ass.
Nate, all you have to do is just mention Dick Rising, and it's like, oh, that band. All right, before we wrap up, we wanted to mention a few outtakes from the Party album, as well as the band's 1965 single, The Little Girl I Once Knew. So, Riley, do you want to kind of start us off with that?
All right, so as we know that this was a pretty how should I phrase this, like off the cuff album to begin with. They kind of just, for better or for worse, they just kind of threw this shit together. Um, there is a lot of outtakes that they did. Some of them were more ideas for what they were gonna do. Like you have like, and this is all on the uncovered and unplugged, like that blue cover party, I guess CD or compilation that you can find on streaming. There's a lot of like, like 40-second clips of songs they almost did. There's a couple like minute half clips, but there's a couple that are pretty fully realized. The first one I wanted to cover was their version of Satisfaction. You have about like one or two on there. But they're both like they're fully the song by the Rolling Stones. I'm a big Stones fan. I mean, they're not in my regular listing as much as they used to be. I think they're kind of like baby's first rock and roll band. So you kind of get past them a little quick. They got a lot of great deep cuts and stuff, but let's be honest, Satisfaction's a pretty like surface level song. But I think they did a pretty good job. I think that for what we got, I think it would have been a lot better than some of the covers we got on the album. And it's definitely a fun curiosity listen because I mean, I know that even though Mike kind of threw that shade about 20 years later, saying that Mick Jagger's too chicken shit to get on stage with the Beach Boys, I do imagine that Mike was pretty inspired by Mick Jagger in a lot of sense, and they're both front men, and that I mean I'm pretty I don't not pretty sure I know that he is actually a fan of the Rolling Stones. I know that a lot of the Beach Boys were. I know Brian was there for I think the song My Obsession when it was being recorded. I know Brian is a
Yeah,
fan of the Stones too. He says this is his favorite Stones song.
he's obsessed with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Terrible. But I do like this version. I think it's pretty cool. It's a great curiosity listen if you ever want to hear like a Beach Boys acoustic take on the Stones classic. And we know the Beach Boys can rock pretty hard. So I'm kind of curious what like a hard rocking version would sound like. But I do like it. I think it's a pretty fun listen. Um, I love the part where they go, and I try, and I try. I like the way that they
Yeah.
emphasize the vocal on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we know the band was big fans of the Stones because in the 70s they were covering Jumpin' Jack Flash to close out the concerts in the early to mid 70s, which that sounds really cool too on the Sail on Sailor box set. But yeah, this cover I think it's pretty solid. Definitely would have preferred it over some of this stuff that made it on here. like Alley Oop and the massacre of I Get Around and Little Deuce Coupe. I mean, this would have been, I think one of you guys mentioned this would have made a good side two opener. I agree with that. I think this would have been a good way to kick off side two over something like Alley Oop. So I like it. It's fun. I wish it made it.
I
Yeah.
do really like this recording of Satisfaction. I think they really kick ass on it. And to me, I hear Brian's voice most prominently, and I think Brian just knocked it out of the park. I'd be curious who's playing bass on this one, whether it's Brian or Bruce, because the bass sounds great on this one too.
Mm-hmm. I didn't get the chance to listen to all of the outtakes on Party. I also did listen to Ruby Baby, which I think is a pretty fun cover. That one, like, I'm not like devastated it didn't make it onto the album, but I think it's fun enough, and I definitely would prefer it over some of the stuff that made it. But any additional thoughts on the outtakes, guys?
I think Ruby Baby is less of a novelty track than either Alley Oop or Papa Oom Mow Mow, and I think it probably would have gotten. I think it would have been a much cooler listen. I know they didn't they do a version of Ruby Baby like in the 70s too?
Yes, it's from that weird era. Yeah.
Yeah. I like how we
Honestly,
call it the weird era.
when it comes to Ruby, I'm such a nerd. Whenever I think of Ruby Baby, there was a commercial that Apple did in the 2000s when they had the Ruby iMac, and they put that damn song over it. So whenever I think of Ruby Baby, that's what I think of. They had a whole series of commercials, and one had blue suede shoes. One had the what's that one song like in the white room with black curtains?
White
In
Room.
the white room with black
Song's
curtains.
called White Room.
White room, yes, they had that song, and then they had "It's Not Easy Being Green" for their iMacs they had at the time. So that's whenever I think of Ruby Baby, I think of that. Fine cover by the band, but I agree. Not like super upset didn't make it, but it definitely would have been better than like Alley Oop.
Uh,
Yeah, I do like the Ruby Baby recording as well. I'm glad that they made room for it on the 1993 Good Vibrations box set because that was one of the unreleased songs they got to include on that project that was definitely blowing people's minds when it came out. And then as for the other outtakes, earlier I mentioned the Riot in Cell Block 9.
yeah, we
Would have
did.
been interesting if that came out at this point instead of the form that it ultimately came out in. And it just
Penny, Penny's
shows that
body
they
was
really
sort of
loved,
no match for a gun.
That's right.
yeah, it just
Oh,
shows
dude,
they
it's a
really
fucking
did.
bar, dude. That's maybe his best lyric.
Oh, I agree. That's a great lyric.
In
But
a tunable
it
lyric.
shows they really did like that song, and it was a staple in the late 60s and early 70s for them. And then as for other covers, it's kind of interesting that they messed around with Heart and Soul because that I guess could have been the Jan and Dean number that they went with instead of Barbara Ann. So it almost makes you wonder about an alternate universe where the Beach Boys had a number one with Heart and Soul instead of Barbara Ann.
I could see that.
Mhm.
Yeah, which
Mike,
is
Mike
another
going.
really cool Jan and Dean track that definitely influenced the Beach Boys when you listen to it. You can hear that very beginnings of the California sound. And then just looking over the other covers, I think there was one other
They're
that,
not their covers, but their version of California Girls they did on that would have been way better than that monstrosity that we got.
Anything would have
oh
been
yeah, two
better
other
than
ones
that.
jumped out to me. Smokey Joe's Cafe, which I bring up a lot as a song that
Yeah.
Mike Love really, 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 really loved. That's kind of like his shortening bread is Smokey Joe's Cafe
I think
because
Ryan Cell Block number 9 is his ding dang. If we're
yeah,
really thinking about it.
because there's a lot of Mike Love songs, especially Kokomo and I Get Around and a bunch of others that sort of pull from that hook from that Smokey Joe's Cafe. And Al Jardine actually just re-recorded Smokey Joe's Cafe with new lyrics on his new EP. And then finally, the other one that stuck out to me was the fact that they did The Boy from New York City. So it would have been really interesting to have them record The Girl from New York City on Summer Days and Summer Nights, and then on their next album to follow it up with The Boy from New York City. That would have been really cool in my opinion. So that would have been nice for them to include.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I actually kind of like that Ryan Cell Block number 9. I think it's interesting that the song actually does have like a pretty long history. And I was kind of joking saying it's his ding dang, but like let's be honest, he rewrote the lyrics for it and then kind of like changed it up a bit. Same with Brian and Short and Bread made ding dang. Um,
Yeah, good point.
so and then I think some of the cool stuff that I actually got out of listening to this was some of the dialogue we had. Like I love listening into them and just kind of being like a regular band. I love that they mentioned Murray and the Sun Rays. That was kind of cool. And
And
like
they
there's
weren't
that
even
one where like
salty
they're
about
like
it or anything. They were like supportive.
yeah, and then there was a little like thing where I think Carl was like shitting on like a really bad guitar. He's like, "Give me a different one," which I thought was pretty funny. I don't know. Thinking of how like off cuff this is, and you're just kind of like this is kind of more on the spot for them. It's really like a just a good look into them as like just a band kind of working together because these are all like covers, so they're really more or less. I know Brian probably arranged it, but they're still working as a group to like do all this, and it's cool to get that little snapshot of them and that snapshot of the time like right before Pet Sounds.
Mhm.
Um,
I know Bruce was kind of has talked about like sweating bullets, being relatively new to playing bass, and now being in the studio playing bass on most of these songs to kind of free Brian up to produce. That must have been, even though it has that party atmosphere, I'm sure he was like, oh boy, oh boy.
shitting, yeah, he was barely like an official member too, so he was like shitting his pants. Like Brian could just
Yeah.
like cut him at any point.
Speaking of right before Pet Sounds, do we want to talk about the band's single from the same year, "The Little Girl I Once Knew"?
Yeah, I was actually just about to get into that. So, ironically, while Brian is working on this very stripped back party album, he is also working on a song called The Little Girl I Once Knew, which was, this is like about as close as you can get to Pet Sounds, like right before Pet Sounds. Like, this is, if you put it on the album, you probably wouldn't have really thought it to be out of place. I think compositionally, it does borrow a lot from Summer Days. Like
Yep.
it sounds like a very like sunshiny pop kind of California pop song. But it was kind of like controversial about this one. And the reason why it wasn't as big as I guess Brian wanted it to be was because he was literally just putting stops in the song. Like there's a second where the song just cuts. And then it goes, "He's not the little girl I once knew." And
Yeah.
that pissed radios off. They
Hmm.
did not want to play a song with cuts because they didn't want people thinking that like either the radios were broken or it's just kind of annoying. It ruins the flow of the song. So it didn't really do too hot.
Top 20, I think.
Yeah, like compared to like Barbara Ann and a lot of the other tracks. But what's funny is that I think this did really well in the UK. I know that John Lennon like had this in his jukebox. Like this, he called this like one of his favorite songs from that year. I know George Harrison was also a big fan of this one, and also "Girl Don't Tell Me" and some of the other tracks from Summer Days. Um, but this was, I think, I just had a brain fart. I think I kind of covered everything though. Like this song was released right before Pet Sounds. It shows Brian's evolution, not necessarily as a songwriter, but as a producer and the style that he was going to go very soon. Um, and the composite, like the not necessarily compositionally, but like lyrically, it's kind of also about like that kind of growing up kind of thing. She's not the little girl I once knew. It's kind of similar, like lyrically to Caroline No, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Hear that.
I'm a big fan of this one. I like it a lot. I don't come back to it a lot because it's not really on any album, so I kind of have to search for it. But every time it pops up, I love it. It's a great California sunshine pop song. You can see that it was coming off the heels of Summer Days, and it's very reminiscent of like "You're So Good to Me" and Jesus Christ, man, second brain fart. California Girls.
Let him run wild.
Yeah, that kind of like compositional style. So I'm a big fan of it. Kind of wish it was actually on Endless Summer, but it made it Spirit of America, so it's pretty damn close. But great track.
Yeah, I have similar feelings about it as you. I think it definitely kind of like fits right in between like Summer Days and Summer Nights and Pet Sounds. Definitely, I think, yeah, like you said, musically, compositionally, I lean it more towards Summer Days and Summer Nights than Pet Sounds, but really cool track, great production from Brian on this and the Wrecking Crew. And yeah, I can see like why the pauses kind of threw people off. It definitely is very different. You know, it kind of catches me off guard sometimes too. Like when Mike goes, "Split, man," it just stops. But it is a cool song. I wouldn't say it's like a huge favorite of mine. Like I do like it. It's not one I choose to put on too often, but whenever I do hear it, I do enjoy it. And yeah, it's one of those ones where like Brian's production really makes it for me. So very cool track, and it's kind of a cool transition piece between the early period and today and Summer Days and Summer Nights to Pet Sounds and where Brian was going. So
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. Like I don't probably choose to put on too much, but I always enjoy it when I hear it. definitely you can hear the maturation. That's the right word of
Yeah.
Brian's sound. I definitely feels very Summer Daisy. Yeah, I could definitely see why the radios probably didn't play because if they wanted to avoid dead air. That's the problem. So they heard the gaps and it's like, oh, it's dead air, and I think the FCC doesn't like that either. So I could definitely see why it didn't chart super highly. But yeah, it's definitely got a lot of cool things going on. Very experimental. Kind of has like that baroque vibe to it. Pretty enjoyable song.
I,
And
lo- I
thankfully,
I love the descending piano riff. The but I also kind of feel like the big thing with this song that kind of detracts it a little bit is that it kind of rips off Best Day Ever from SpongeBob. Um, I think that it's just kind of a blatant rip off the little opening thing, and then it kind of like stops for a second and goes right into the song. Rips off SpongeBob.
well, Andy
Uh,
Fan was a big fan, but yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit.
Thank you for that insightful commentary, Riley. Thank you.
I do think this is one of Brian's most effective adventures into the wall of sound, wall building, so to speak. And the arrangement is just so darn complex and creative. I think you could give any current day producer all of the synthesizers and samplers and AI and all the technology in the world, and they would still struggle to recreate this backing track just because it's so dense and so sophisticated. I mean, with the sounds are so inventive that you'd almost swear that you were hearing synthesizers and instruments that didn't even exist yet when the song was created. That's how mind-blowing the arrangement is. But yeah, I will say I wish the silence was filled with even hi-hat clicks or echoes or just anything to keep the beat moving just a little bit more. And even whenever they've played it live with Mike and Bruce's band or during the 50th reunion tour, they'll at least do like those hi-hat clicks in the moments of silence to kind of keep things flowing along. And I think that would have been nice. However, the silence thing is really cool, and Brian would actually use that to really great effect in a way with Wouldn't It Be Nice, with how there's that drum hit and kind of that brief moment of silence before the song actually starts. But in the case of Wouldn't It Be Nice, that echo is so strong that it kind of carries you through the silence. Whereas with this version, I feel like the echo dies down a little bit. Whereas if the echo was a little stronger and carried you through the silence, the song probably would have been like a top 10 hit.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me, you were talking about how like, yeah, it just completely stops and like that might have turned people off. I think of that with, I know Bruce said this about Heroes and Villains and some other people too, where like that transition between the verse and the chorus, where it goes into the heroes and villains. I remember Bruce said like people were dancing to the verse and then it just stops and then it transitions to that. People were like, what are we supposed to do now? you know? So I kind of feel like there's a bit of a comparison there and that it's kind of a strange transition, kind of.
One thing I was going to suggest that might be fun is if we all suggested a tune or two that we thought would be good inclusions for the party album that they didn't even attempt.
I like that.
A few that would come to mind for me would be Summer Means Fun by Bruce and Terry. That would be totally in their wheelhouse. Maybe Hey Little Cobra by the Ripcords would have also been in their wheelhouse. And then I also think they probably could have done a cool take on an Elvis song. Maybe I'd say uh Baby Let's Play House or even imagine Heartbreak Hotel with Beach Boys harmonies.
Sorry,
Because
man.
that song
I
is
heard "Baby, Let's Play House" and I immediately thought of Bruce.
Maybe let's
um
house.
Yep.
Heartbreak Hotel with Beach Boys oohs and ahs could have been really, really gorgeous. Or I'm trying to think of um any other Elvis songs that I think they could have done well.
I'll throw one out there. It would probably be a long shot, especially considering that the Who, um, were much bigger fans of the Beach Boys than the Beach Boys were fans of the Who. Um, I feel like it's a very one-sided relationship there. Um, but a song that came out in '64 in the US and January '65 in the UK, ironically, was a song called "I Can't Explain" by The Who. Jake might know that one. I think that'd be a pretty cool. I think what's really cool about that one is you have that like rock and roll verse that maybe Mike could have sang lead on with like a with the acoustic guitar, but there's harmonies on the chorus, where it's like can't explain, and you hear in the background it's like ooh. I think you could have had some awesome harmonizing there. So I think if they were doing Satisfaction by the Stones, I mean the Who were pretty big in '65 too. So I mean maybe they could have done Can't Explain. That would have been a cool acoustic cover.
Two
I've
more
got
I thought of would be Love Me Tender by Elvis. I think they could have nailed with those really lush 50s harmonies. And I think they could have easily done Surf City or Baby Talk
Surf
or
City would have
Jenny
been awesome,
Lee.
actually. Capitalizing
Yeah.
the song that Brian had already written too. So,
yeah. Mine that I could think of, and I know they did end up covering this live years later, but Del Shannon Runaway.
yeah,
Oh, good one.
Al could have done that one instead of Times Are Right, They Are Changing. What about I'm really second time I've mentioned Dream Beach Boys cover. What if they did like Sherry by the Four Seasons?
Oh, would have been so great.
That would have been awesome with the acoustic guitars.
Yeah, but no Adrian Baker though. That's the
Here's
problem.
here's
That's
my here's
that's
what I
that's the point, Jake.
here's what I would throw out. I would something Little Richard would be cool, like The Girl Can't Help It or something. A better version of Blueberry Hill because that version on 50 Big Ones is I think they could do a really good version of Blueberry Hill, like more stripped back, because I think that's a great song, but I just don't like the version on
What,
50 Big Ones very
what
much.
about Be My Baby? Um,
Hell yeah.
I know they did that. Like they technically did do like a Beach Boys party version in like the '90s, but what if they actually like did Be My Baby? They
Well,
had,
that would have been magical.
yeah.
I'm trying to think what else I'd want to hear.
There's a that's a good question. Other like for thinking like '50s, maybe I know they
Blue
did it
Velvet. Blue
Blue
Velvet.
Velvet by
A version of
Bobby
Blue
Vinton.
Velvet by Bobby Vinton. That would be cool.
What
Especially because
Oh,
about
like
I only have eyes for you would have been cool.
I don't think they could have did it. I don't think they would have pulled it off. I feel like that song, like the original,
Wow.
is like ethereal. I don't know.
what about In the Still of the Night? That would have been a cool
that
one.
would I mean they did a good version on 15 Big Ones, but yeah, hearing it with their younger voice would be good too. Or
Oh, what's that Dion song? Run Around Sue would have been pretty
Run
fun.
Around Sue. Oh yeah, I could see Carl doing that one.
I could see Dennis doing that.
Yeah,
Well, he
yeah,
also did The Wanderer though.
yeah,
So but
there we
they've
yeah.
go.
done
Yeah,
Dion, so
yeah,
that's a whole can of worms. I think everybody in the comments right now
yeah.
should be
Everybody listening right here, we'll make a list of them. Yeah,
But it has to have existed in 65. We're not like just
Yeah.
not gonna do
but
like
like December '65 before then. So like I was thinking like my generation, but that came out like around the same exact time. So
Little Latin Loopy Loo by the Righteous Brothers could have been a cool one. Popsicle, another Jan and Dean song could have been fun.
what about when did that one song come out?
Love Me Do, that would
yeah,
have
I was
been
about to say
cool.
that, Nate. You're thinking of the same wavelength. I was about to say they did a Beatles one. Love Me Do is a pretty cool acoustic one they could have done.
I
What
like to
about the
hear.
harmonica?
I like to hear, and I love her. I think that'd be interesting.
That would have
Oh
been
wow.
so cool.
Or do you want to know a secret? That'd be an interesting one.
Oh yeah, they could
Mhm.
do that. That fits the vibe for
Gotta
Till
sure.
be
There Was You. Let's hear some Carl guitar chops.
Which one did you say?
Till There Was You.
Oh, until it was you, or like
Or since this album, since Beatles for Sale kind of has a similar vibe almost to
I'm
Party
a
in some
loser.
way, I think something like that, or I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. I mean it's Party. There you go.
Yeah, but that's more of like
Oh
a
shit,
downer.
that's like 4D chess.
I don't want to spoil the
For the
party.
party, so I'll go.
Then
What about
they could have called the
Surfer,
album I Don't Want to
oh
Spoil the Party.
what is that one song called? This Boy.
Oh,
That'd
Oh,
be a good one.
damn, that would have been good.
winner. I like that one.
That's like what Beach Boys song would you have rather had on there?
Yes.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything other than I Get Around and Little Deuce shit.
Surfer Joe by the Safaris could have been another cool one. Or
Sir,
even
yeah.
imagine a party version of Wipeout with bongos and acoustic guitars instead of
Imagine
Have
they did a Sheriff of Nottingham by David Marks and the Marksmen.
that would be
That would be
Bring
interesting.
David back into the studio just for that one track.
Nate, have Bruce do the Wipeout intro, like the Wipeout.
yeah.
What if they did the rap over it?
Then they'd be really ahead of their time to do a rap in 1965.
Damn, this is a whole can of worms.
we gotta close the can. We gotta.
We would keep going on for like hours and hours. Jake would be in editing hell.
Do you like worms? I don't. All right, we will wrap it up there. So thank you everybody for listening to this 58th episode of Good Timin. Hope you all enjoyed the show. I had a lot of fun discussing Beach Boys Party with you guys, and I'm looking forward to finishing up the band 60s catalog in the next few weeks. So, as always, if you like this podcast and want to hear more, feel free to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. We greatly appreciate the support as it motivates us to make more episodes in the future. Also, as a reminder, the Good Timin podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So there's plenty of different places to listen and keep up with the show. So thank you again, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye.